I never thought the same hands I once held to teach him how to walk would be the ones to beat me, beating me until I was bleeding on the floor of my own home. My son Andrew broke my nose with his closed fist. He screamed that I deserved to be hit for being a selfish and cheap father. What he didn't know is that behind my supposed poverty, a fortune was hidden that would change everything forever. Before we continue, subscribe and activate the notification bell. We publish new stories every day. Leave your like and tell us in the comments what city and country you are watching from. My name is Nathan Miller. I'm 64 years old, and for the last 20 years, I've lived as a widower who dedicated every dollar of his pension to raising and educating his only son. When my dear wife Helen died in 2004, Andrew was just 12 years old. I perfectly remember that gray November day. I promised her at her grave that I would do everything possible so our son would grow up to be a good man. How wrong I was. For 2 decades, I worked double shifts at the textile factory in a small city outside Chicago, all to pay for his college education. I gave up vacations, new clothes, even the necessary medications for my arthritis. Also, Andrew could have a career in business administration. I sold Helen's car. I pawned her wedding ring. I even stopped going to the doctor, all to save every cent I could invest in his future. Andrew graduated in 2019 with honors. He got a decent office job downtown, and I thought I had finally fulfilled my promise to Helen. During these last few years, our relationship had been polite but distant. He lived in his own apartment with his girlfriend, Patricia Reed, a 29-year-old nurse who worked at City General Hospital. Everything changed on a Sunday in March 2024. Andrew arrived at my modest 2-bedroom apartment in the suburbs. He had a smile I hadn't seen in years. Patricia was with him. She was wearing an engagement ring that shined brighter than all the sacrifices I had made for them. "Dad, we have incredible news," he told me as he sat on my old leather sofa, the one I had bought when he was a teenager. "Patricia and I are getting married in September. We want it to be a perfect wedding, something we'll remember for our whole lives." My heart filled with joy. After so many years of loneliness, I would finally have a complete family again. Patricia seemed like a good girl, polite and hardworking. I had heard nurses made good money, so I thought between the two of them, they could organize a beautiful ceremony. "Congratulations, son," I said, hugging them both. "Your mother would be so proud to see you settling down with such a wonderful woman." But then Andrew's expression changed. His smile became more calculating, colder. "Dad, we need to talk about something important," he said. Patricia nodded beside him. "We've been planning the wedding, and between the venue, the catering, the decorations, the photographer, and everything else, we need $20,000. My world stopped completely. $20,000. That number echoed in my head like a hammer hitting steel. At that moment, I made a decision that would change our lives forever. I decided to lie about my real financial situation, to test my son's true character. "Andrew, my son," I said, my voice trembling, faking a worry I didn't feel. My pension is barely $800 a month with house expenses, food, medicine. I don't have that kind of money." The reaction was immediate and brutal. "What do you mean you don't have money?" Andrew exploded, getting to his feet. "You've had 20 years to save. What do you spend it all on? What do you waste your pension on?" Patricia, who had been silent until then, joined the accusations. "Nathan, with all due respect, other fathers sacrifice for their children's weddings. My father already promised us $5,000, and he earns less than you. Listen to me," I tried to explain, maintaining my act. "I can help you with $5,000. If you give me a few months to get it together, I'll have to take out a loan." "But $5,000? Andrew yelled with a fury I had never seen in him. "Patricia, did you hear that? My own father, who says he loves me more than his own life, is offering me scraps for the most important day of my existence." At that moment, seeing the boundless anger in my son's eyes, I knew I had made the right decision to test him. The person in front of me was not the boy I had raised with so much love and sacrifice. He was a stranger who saw me only as a source of money. What neither of them knew is that in my secret account at a major national bank inherited from Helen sat $200,000 money I had kept hidden for 2 decades, waiting for the perfect moment to use it. That moment had arrived, but not in the way Andrew expected. The days following that conversation were a nightmare I never imagined living. Andrew started calling me 3 times a day, each conversation more aggressive than the last. His tone had changed completely. He was no longer my loving son, but a stranger who spoke to me as if I were his employee. Dad, Patricia and I have been calculating the expenses. He told me during one of those phone calls on a Wednesday afternoon, the La Favorita Hall in the next town over costs $8,000 just for the rental. The menu for 150 guests is another $7,000. The professional photographer we want charges $2,500. The band, another $2,000. And that's not even counting the wedding dress, the flowers, the invitations. I maintained my act of a father worried about money. Son, I understand you want a beautiful celebration, but those numbers are astronomical. Couldn't you do something simpler? Your mother and I got married on $500, and we were very happy. There's the problem, Andrew snapped. You're always comparing everything to your time. Patricia deserves a princess wedding, not the poor ceremony you had with Mom. Those words hurt me more than any physical blow. Helen and I had been so happy at our simple wedding in the small St. John's church. She looked radiant in a white dress her own mother had sewn, and I wore the only suit I owned. But we had been surrounded by genuine love, not materialistic demands. Andrew, don't talk about your mother like that, I warned him firmly. She was an extraordinary woman who valued love above appearances. Sure, that's why she died without ever knowing luxury. He replied with a cruelty that left me breathless. Patricia isn't going to settle for crumbs like she did. I hung up the phone, trembling with rage. How did he dare speak about Helen like that? How had I raised such a monster without realizing it? That Friday, Andrew and Patricia showed up at my door unannounced. This time, Patricia took control of the conversation. Nathan, we need to talk. Seriously? She began, settling onto my sofa as if she owned the place. I've been looking into your finances, and frankly, I don't understand where your money goes each month. Looking into my finances? I asked in disbelief. Who gave you the right to do that? Andrew told me you received a severance package when the textile factory closed. Patricia continued, ignoring my question. That was 3 years ago. Where is that money? It was true I had received a small severance of $8,000, but I had used it to repair the roof and replace the heating system. However, I decided to continue my act. That severance pay went to medical expenses and house repairs.
Elite partiali.
At my age, health problems are expensive. Medical expenses, Andrew scoffed. You barely go to the doctor because you say you can't afford it. Patricia, do you see how he lies? Besides, Patricia added with a fake smile. I spoke with my boss at the hospital. She explained that seniors get a lot of tax breaks and discounts. You should have more available money than you admit. The manipulation was obvious. This woman had been calculating my supposed income like an auditor. I realized it wasn't just Andrew who had changed. Patricia was influencing him negatively. Or maybe she had simply revealed her true ambitious personality. Listen, I told them, keeping my conciliatory tone. I understand your frustration. Let me do some calculations. Maybe I can get a personal loan using the house as collateral. I could get $10,000, but I would need 6 months to organize it. $10,000? Patricia screamed, standing up. That's not even half of what we need. Andrew, your father is mocking us. Patricia is right. Andrew said, his eyes bloodshot with anger. Dad, other fathers sell their cars, take out loans, mortgage their houses. They do whatever it takes for their children's happiness. Andrew, I already mortgaged this house twice to pay for your college education. I reminded him, don't you remember the sacrifices I made? The nights I worked double shifts so you could have books and school supplies. That was your obligation as a father, he yelled. I didn't ask you to bring me into this world. If you decided to have me, you had to accept the consequences. His words pierced me like daggers. 20 years of unconditional love, of silent sacrifices, of sleepless nights when he was sick, of shared joy in every one of his achievements, all reduced to an obligation. Look, Nathan, Patricia intervened, her voice calculatedly sweet. We don't want to pressure you, but my younger sister's father paid $15,000 for her wedding last year. My own father, who is an electrician and earns much less than what you must have in your pension, already promised us $5,000. How do you think I feel when I have to explain to my family that the groom's father can't even contribute half? Public humiliation. That was their strategy. Make me feel like a failure in front of strangers, as if my worth as a father was measured only by the amount of money I could hand over. Besides, Patricia continued, we already booked the date at La Favorita. If we don't confirm the full payment by April 30th, we lose the reservation and the $1,000 deposit we already paid. $1,000 deposit? I asked, alarmed. Where did you get that money? Andrew got an advance at work, Patricia replied. But now his paycheck is being garnished for 6 months. That's why we need your help urgently. The trap was set. They had spent money they didn't have, betting that I would give in to the pressure. It was a perfectly orchestrated manipulation. Dad, Andrew pleaded, suddenly changing to a pitiful tone. You always said you would do anything for my happiness. This wedding is the most important thing that has ever happened to me. Patricia is perfect for me. Don't you want to see me happy? For a moment, my father's heart almost gave in. But then I remembered his cruel words about Helen. His shouting, his irrational demands. No, this wasn't love. It was emotional blackmail, son. I told him with a firm voice, I will help you with $10,000 and not 1 cent more. That is my final offer. The silence that followed was deathly. Patricia and Andrew looked at each other with an expression I will never forget. Absolute contempt for me. In that case, Patricia said, getting up, I think we have nothing more to talk about. They walked to the door. But before leaving, Andrew turned back to me. Dad, I hope you know that Patricia is going to tell her entire family that my father is a cheapskate who prefers to hoard his money rather than make his only son happy. The door slammed shut with a bang that echoed through the house. I was left alone, surrounded by a silence that seemed to scream the magnitude of the betrayal I had just witnessed. That night, as I looked at the photograph of Helen on my nightstand, I whispered, My love, I think the time has come to find out what kind of man we really raised. 3 weeks passed with no news from Andrew. 3 weeks of absolute silence. It allowed me to reflect on the situation and to observe my son's true character from a distance. During that time, I kept my usual routine. The market on Tuesdays, a walk in Willow Creek Park on Thursdays, and the weekly visit to the cemetery where Helen rests. It was precisely during one of those visits, on a sunny Saturday in April, that the incident occurred that would trigger the tragedy. While I was cleaning Helen's headstone and telling her about the problems with Andrew, I heard a familiar voice behind me. Mr. Miller, how are you? I turned and saw Betty Jimenez, a 70-year-old woman who lived in my building. Betty had been a widow for 5 years and had serious financial problems. Her pension was insufficient, and her children, who lived in Barcelona, rarely helped her. Hello, Betty. Just here visiting my Helen like every week, I replied, wiping my hands on a handkerchief. Mr. Miller, I need to ask you a huge favor, she told me, her voice trembling. My granddaughter Lucy is graduating from nursing school next week. She's the first person in our family to get a college degree. I want to give her something special, but I don't have enough money. Betty was a dignified woman who never asked for help. The fact that she was coming to mend her situation was desperate. What exactly do you need? I asked. Just $1,000 to buy her a tablet she needs for her job at the hospital. I know it's a lot of money, but I could pay you back in installments. $50 a month. I'll sign any paper you want. My heart was moved. Betty reminded me of Helen, a fighter, humble, a woman who valued education above all else. Besides, $1,000 was an insignificant amount compared to the $200,000 I had saved. Betty, you don't need to sign anything or pay me back. I told her, tomorrow, I will give you the $1,000 as a gift for your granddaughter. Consider it an investment in the future of a hard-working young woman. Tears rolled down her wrinkled cheeks. "Mr. Miller, you are an angel. I don't know how to thank you." The next day, Sunday morning, I withdrew $1,000 from my bank account and gave it to Betty. She cried with emotion and blessed me over and over. Seeing her happiness filled me with a satisfaction I hadn't felt in months. However, that same afternoon, my peace was interrupted by violent pounding on my door. When I opened it, I found Andrew and Patricia. But they weren't alone. They were accompanied by a young man about 25 years old whom I didn't recognize. "Can I know what this means?" I asked them as the three of them entered without waiting for an invitation. "Dad, this is Kevin Reed, Patricia's younger brother," Andrew said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "He works at the bank where you have your account." My blood ran cold. They had been investigating my bank activity. "Mr. Miller," Kevin began, in a professional but threatening tone, "my sister told me about your financial situation, but it's curious that you withdrew exactly $1,000 in cash yesterday. A considerable amount for someone who claims not to have money for his son's wedding." The betrayal was complete. Not only had they violated my privacy, but they had used professional contacts to illegally spy on me. "How dare you investigate my bank accounts?" I exploded with a rage I had held in for weeks. "That is illegal." "What's illegal is lying to your own son," Patricia replied brazenly. "We know you withdrew $1,000 yesterday. What did you use it for?" "My finances are my business," I responded firmly. "I don't have to explain to anyone how I spend my own money." "Yes, you do," Andrew roared, moving dangerously close to me. "I am your son. I have the right to know why you prefer to spend your money on other things before helping me on the most important day of my life." "Other things?" I repeated in disbelief. "You think $1,000 changes anything? You asked me for $20,000. Every dollar counts," Patricia yelled. "You say you don't have money, but yesterday you spent $1,000 on who knows what. If you're so interested," I said, finally losing my patience. "I gave that $1,000 to Betty Jimenez, my neighbor, so she could buy a tablet for her granddaughter who is graduating as a nurse, a young woman who actually values education and effort." The silence that followed was deafening. The three of them looked at me as if I had confessed a crime. "You gave $1,000 to a stranger?" Andrew whispered, in a voice I didn't recognize. "To a stranger who isn't even family." "Betty is not a stranger," I explained. "She is a dignified woman who raised 3 children alone, worked for 40 years as a seamstress, and now lives on a miserable pension while her own children have abandoned her. Her granddaughter Lucy is an exemplary young woman who I don't give a damn about that old woman and her granddaughter." Andrew exploded with a violence I had never seen. "You are my father. I am your blood. How can you give money to strangers when your own son is asking you for help?" "Andrew, lower your voice," I warned him. "The neighbors are going to hear." "Let them hear," he bellowed out of his mind. "Let everyone know that my father prefers to help any stranger before his own family." Patricia and Kevin exchanged knowing glances. It was clear they had come prepared for this confrontation. "Nathan," Patricia said, her voice poisonous, "this proves that you do have money available. If you could give away $1,000 without thinking, it means you can help us with much more." "Exactly," Kevin added. "Mr. Miller, I've worked at the bank for 3 years. I know the spending patterns of clients. You have more money than you admit. Are you threatening me?" I asked, looking directly into Kevin's eyes. "We're not threatening you," Andrew replied with a cruel smile. "We're just opening your eyes. Dad, are you going to give us that $20,000 or are you going to lose your only son forever?" "And if I refuse?" I asked defiantly. "If you refuse," Andrew said, moving in until he was inches from my face, "you will never see us again. Patricia and I will move to another city. You will not meet your grandchildren. You will die alone and abandoned like that pathetic old woman you gave my money to." "Your money," I repeated in disbelief. "Andrew, that money was mine. I worked for it for 40 years. Your money should be mine," he shouted, out of control. "When you die, it's all going to be mine anyway, but I need that money now." At that moment, something broke irreparably inside me. The mask had fallen completely. My son didn't see me as a father who deserved love and respect, but as an obstacle between him and an inheritance he considered his by right. I spoke to Andrew with a calm that surprised even me. "Get out of my house right now." "What did you say?" he asked, his eyes wide. I said, "All three of you, get out of my house immediately," I repeated, pointing to the door. "I'm not going anywhere until you give me my money," Andrew roared. "Your money?" I finally exploded. "You ungrateful brat. I sacrificed my entire life for you. I worked myself to death to give you an education. I sold everything that had sentimental value so you could study. And you talk to me about your money. That was your obligation," he yelled, approaching menacingly. "I didn't ask to be born." "No," I shouted back. "My obligation was to raise you until you were 18. Everything I did after that was out of love. But apparently, you don't understand what that word means. You're the one who doesn't understand anything," Andrew bellowed. "You're a selfish, cheap old man who would rather die with his money than make his son happy. Get out of my house," I ordered. "Give me my money first. Get out." It was then that Andrew completely lost control. His eyes filled with rage, his hands clenched into fists, and for the first time in my life, I felt real fear of my own son. "You know what, Dad?" he said to me, his voice dripping with pure hatred. "You deserve to be hit for being such a selfish and cheap father." The first punch came so fast, I couldn't dodge it. His closed fist hit me directly in the nose. I immediately felt the metallic taste of blood filling my mouth. The pain was indescribable, but the emotional betrayal hurt 1,000 times more. I fell backward, but Andrew didn't stop. Thanks for watching and subscribe.